What makes you uncomfortable? Is it being on a stage, being naked? Let me tell you about a story in which I was a nude art model on a stage in front of 40 people under fluorescent lighting on a Saturday morning. Being a nude art model was one of my uncomfortable experiences, and today I'm going to share my ongoing two-step process to be comfortable being uncomfortable and why this process has a simple mechanism to jumpstart your confidence. Who cannot use a little boost of confidence? Now, I figured being a nude art model would be a great uncomfortable experience, considering I had a birthmark on my back. It looked like a goat kicked me, and I had skin that was so blotchy and transparent that you could confuse congested traffic on a Google map on my thigh. I'm the type of person who wears the paper smock thing in the doctor's room because I don't want one person looking at me naked, let alone dozens with paintbrushes or pens. So I called around, I did some research. Turns out there's an art class that practices every Saturday morning. They've been practicing since 2006 with painting nude art models. I thought, okay, this sounds pretty legit. I show up the next class, and the instructor had told me, okay, you could sit in the back, you could observe, just watch. Maybe if the booker for the models is there, the professional models, we could talk about being a substitute at some point. In that classroom, I could only take the back seat because it was packed. There were 40-some easels with people tying their smocks, squirting their paint, angling their easels to get the best view of the stage. I thought, wow, this is not a casual Saturday morning art class. This is like going to paintball practice or something. And as I sat in that back row, the first model waltzed onto the stage, and she struck some Xena the Warrior Princess pose with a bow and arrow. I don't even know where she got her prop, but she was regal, rigid. Clearly she had done this before. And just after 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes, I lost track. It was time for a break. That was the warm-up pose. I thought, oh, I can go to the other side of the room. I can go and see what those artists painted from their point of view. This is great. But Mike ran up to me, the organizer whom I spoke with, and said, guess what, Beck? One of the models has a flat tire, so we're going to have to use you. Are you ready? Now, how are you not ready to be naked, assuming you bathe every day? This is not a I forgot my notes situation. So I said, oh, great. I'll be right back. And I ran into the bathroom, and in the bathroom I had one of those laughing hysteria fits, the kind that makes you look deranged right before you break down into tears. Some of you know what I'm exactly talking about. Because that's the only thing I could think to do. How absurd of the situation I was now in. But there I was. This was the whole point of doing these experiences, so I had to go on that stage. I had to do it. And back outside, Mike introduced me as a substitute model. And I was approaching the stage on the little steps like I was going to the guillotine, thinking, do I know anybody in here? What is the photography policy in here? What if someone paints a portrait, girl with the goat kicked back, and sells it in the cafe down the street? Did I shave? These are a few of the thoughts I'm thinking of. But again, at that time I was already on stage. I had to do this. So I shut my eyes, maybe that would help, and I struck this first pose. This kind of like, well, we'll just go back up here. And nothing happened. No one said, what's that mark? No one said, look at that blotchy skin. Nothing. I just heard the faint tink, 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 people painting with their paintbrushes, washing the brushes in their little paint jars. And as the minutes went by, I thought, I'm okay. Maybe I'm getting good at this, okay? A little bit more comfortable with this, even though there were 2 double Niagara Falls gushing from my armpits and my leg is twitching, but I was okay. So for the next pose, I said, I'm going to do something a little bit more challenging for the artist. I will do this crouching pose. Here's another rendition of it. And then I realized that without doubt, 3, 4, maybe 10 people could now see directly up my behind. But I was okay. No one said anything. People just ting, 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 just painting along. And it was fine. And as soon as that pose was called, I ran off the stage and I said, Mike, I am so sorry. I'm sure that pose made a couple people a little uncomfortable. And he said, oh, back. We have seen hundreds of bodies over the years, and frankly, hundreds of parts. No one is uncomfortable, now including you. Every year, I pick a saying to live by. It's kind of like a New Year's resolution, but easier because you just follow the saying, although that's the hard part. People start sending these to me in November, December every year. And my mom in 2014 sent me this one, be comfortable being uncomfortable. I said, Mom, why'd you send me this one? She said, honey, you're not comfortable being uncomfortable. She was right, because I try to avoid uncomfortable situations, anything that's awkward. I go out of my way to make sure people are super comfortable. She reminded me that even on the playground when I was little and something uncomfortable happened, someone burst into tears, I would run the other way. So 2015, that was going to be my year to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I was going to get good at being out here, outside the comfort zone, next to uncomfortable stuff that life has. Being human, most of us like to be in here, inside the comfort zone, protected and shielded from all the uncomfortable stuff of the world. It was going to be a tough year. But I developed a 2-step process to get good at being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Step 1 is the Jomo Fomo test. That's joy of missing out or fear of missing out. If you were to come to me 2 years ago and say, hey, Beck, do you want to scale off a 47-story skyscraper? I'd say, no, I do not. I'm pretty sure I have to refold my laundry that day. That is Jomo. I would take a lot of joy in missing out on that experience. Some of you in here would go, yes, I'm so excited. When is that? And that is FOMO. You would hate to miss out on that experience. That is not an uncomfortable experience for you. Everyone's comfort zone is deeply personal. What's uncomfortable to me may not be uncomfortable to you, may not be uncomfortable to the person sitting next to you. This is why you must do step 1 of this process, which is the Jomo Fomo test. Now, step 2, practice. Practice is hard. It is deliberate. It is doing something over and over again so you get good at that something. Here are a few things that I did to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I was homeless for a night in downtown San Diego. I wore a burqa for a day. I built a shelter of sticks and lived in the sticks, literally. I went to a pro-life, pro-choice protest, complete with megaphones. I performed and wrote a poem. Oops, not yet. I attended a 4-day meditation retreat. I went to meth support groups. I was in a wheelchair for a day. I wrote and performed a poem in front of about 400 people. I was a drag queen, a stand-up comedian, a day laborer, a Scientologist, and a panhandler. I could go on, but I said that this process has a simple mechanism to boost, to jumpstart your confidence. This simple mechanism is so good, so addictive, that I've actually made be comfortable with the uncomfortable a theme for last year and this year. The simple mechanism is the confidence flywheel. It is an endless source of confidence. Let me explain this. A flywheel is a revolving piece of machinery. It's a wheel that's inside a machine that keeps stability, that keeps power going in the machine. When you start anything, you are not good at it. It is exceedingly uncomfortable because it's so novel. And a lot of times what's uncomfortable keeps us from doing it to begin with. But as you practice, as you get a little bit more in the groove of it, you get good at it, marginally even. And as you practice more, you get comfortable with that. And as you get comfortable and you practice it more, then you gain the confidence to think, okay, I could do the next level. I could do the next stage of this thing. Now, here's the neat part about the confidence flywheel and the process of doing and being comfortable with the uncomfortable. You jumpstart the confidence flywheel. You don't start at the top where you have to start from square one and basically get good and then practice and then get comfortable and then practice and then get confident. You already are comfortable with something uncomfortable. And everything we start or do is uncomfortable to begin with. Let me give you one more story to illustrate this point. I have not liked heights, edges. This is off of a tall skyscraper, which I'll explain in a minute. Ever since I was a little girl, and I was on the very edge of this very tall slide, which, by the way, has been shut down because you could totally crack your head open, I have not liked edges. Turns out, lucky me, there was an event called Over the Edge. It has you rappel off of this skyscraper. Of course, I had to sign up for this lovely experience. And when you first get there, you have to go through 20 people who show you how to work the GoPro and your walkie-talkie and how basically not to die and all this good stuff. And then you go to the actual edge, where there are about 10 people waiting for you. The first thing you do is you put on these little blue booties. It's so that you do not scuff the side of the skyscraper. Literally. I'm like, is this harder to clean than pee? I guess so, because you have to put the booties on. They're like, put on the booties. I'm like, okay. And as I'm putting these booties on, I'm thinking that someone, anybody, could just snip me away from these skinny little ropes. My booties flying up like little poof marks, like the coyote when he's going over a cliff to chase the roadrunner. That was going to be me. But at this point, I was already perpendicular to the wall. And one of the organizers said, look down, look down. And I look down and I see that there's ants there's cars that look like the size of ants. And that's when your brain says something is wrong with this situation. This is not a good situation. But I was there, and one of the organizers then said, let go, let go. Of course, I had been holding on to that skinny little rope for my life. And after about 20 seconds, I did let go. And I made it all the way down that atrociously tall building. Now, after doing this experience, I feel, of course, comfortable with edges. But because I've done this process of being comfortable with the uncomfortable, I'm really comfortable with something uncomfortable. So much so that I started taking helicopter lessons, something I thought would always be so great if it wasn't for how uncomfortable it was. It's very technical. You could totally kill yourself. I have never flown a plane in my life, for example. Even my pilot, my first instructor said, don't you want to learn how to fly first? That's usually what people do to get comfortable. And I said, I'm already comfortable with what's uncomfortable. This is a photo I took from one of my last flights a few weeks ago. Now I have FOMO if I miss one of the flights. Sometimes I even fly with one of the doors off. You do not need to do helicopter lessons or rappelling off a skyscraper to get the confidence flywheel rolling and to even jumpstart it by doing this two-step process. You can start with anything that today passes your Jomo Fomo test. For some of you, that may be introducing yourself to someone you would never approach because you have Jomo about rejection. For others, it may be confronting someone because you have Jomo about confrontation. Here's the deal, though. If you want to get rid of Jomo, if you want to get really good with being comfortable with the uncomfortable, you're going to need step 2, and that's practice. Thank you so much.